Welcome to How the Blank, brought to you by What the Blank, and today we're talking about how the audition process.
Yeah, so we thought that educating people about auditions, about how we take auditions, and also how it is good to audition, we thought would help. So we thought that we would educate the world about how auditions should be done and how we think auditions should be done and our personal experience with auditioning people and how we have auditioned in the past. So we'll just go around and talk about our different experience and give some pointers on the best way to audition.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, who wants to start then?
Well, I guess I'll start because I started when I was studying. It was like I did a lot of experimental theater, and everything I did was always live, and I always would prefer to go to live auditions versus today. Most of them are virtual now.
They're all virtual.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but even when we hold auditions, we usually take preference over the ones that will come live because you can get so much more out of them. And going live tests your skills in a larger variety than what you can do through a camera, I believe.
And your nerves, you know, because nerves with live is so much harder than nerves on the camera, because you can re-record this take sucked, what we do all the time.
Always do it, but that raw energy that takes the cake, I believe. And really can show, and when you're going to live auditions, sometimes they'll mix it up on you and you can really test out, sure, you might do a monologue or a contrasting monologue and 16 bars, but then they might have you do some improv games, and they might have you co-read with somebody and do cold readings. There's so many different ways that you can audition. The original way that I was taught when I was being trained was more of the classical European way of when you come up on the stage and you have your folder or your binder, and at the top of it is your headshot in a large photo, and then behind it is clipped a resume of all your past works, and you have your resume dictated by all your live theater, your musical, lead roles at the top, minor roles going down to the bottom with the most relevant to whatever you're doing, whether it's a drama or a comedy, or and so on. And then if you wanted to, you could have your film work and your commercial work at the bottom, just as a relevance. And you would walk on stage, you take it to the casting director, and you would either hand it to the stage manager, or you would put it on the floor at the end of the stage, depending on their preference. And then you would go to the center of the stage. You would slate your name, sometimes your age, and
what you're doing.
And the role that you're speaking your monologue from, what play it's from. And then you just go into it, and you do your 1 or 2 monologues or your 16 bars, and then at the end you collect yourself, shutting off your emotion to make it definite that you're done, a moment of silence, and you walk off, and then the next person goes on, and then you wait to hear back. Sometimes they would most often they would email you later on, a few weeks or days down the line, depending on how big of a production you're doing, to let you know if you got the part and you could accept it, or whether they decided to go with somebody else. Sometimes you go out and wait in the lobby and they decide that night, which is kind of always the nice thing. I like that, knowing now.
Quick process.
I want to know now.
I don't like waiting over the weekend.
No, because it's so nerve-wracking.
It's that anxiety going.
Because as actors and directors and stuff, waiting sucks.
It does.
We're kind of in a waiting point right now, and it's just so nerve-wracking because you can't schedule the next thing. You can't do the next thing because you don't know if you've gotten the next thing, right? And so it's so scary. It kind of reminds me of interviewing for jobs too. It's like a job interview, but more taxing because it's everything. You're putting everything on the road, you know, to be judged and looked at.
And when you're doing it professionally, like, not only are you doing it to be like, you know, like, sure, there's the embarrassment of like judgment and stuff like that, but it's also like, if there's 20 of you in that room and there's only 4 parts, you know, it's kind of like, who's going to eat this month? You know, if this is what you're doing for a living and that's how you're paying your bills, that's really like, who's gonna get food money, you know?
It's crazy. Yeah.
And like, that's the other thing with live auditions that I really liked, is like, that was the traditional like European standard, but like, I've had auditions too where when I was doing the dinner theater, like, what we did was we would go in the room and you know, everybody might have a few monologues prepared just because that's naturally what we're trained to do, but really they just paired us up in groups of 3s and 4s, and then we just did audition games for 2 hours straight, and the best improvs won. And that was it was such a loose process.
Like, I've heard a bunch of stuff from like people who worked at Evermore and other stuff like that. It's so different, like, because there's the European way, which is slating and everything, and then there is kind of it's called the new gen way, and it's like a devised way, right, that a lot of people are looking for, and it's improv games, right, and that's the new gen way, right, before COVID hit, but now they've kind of gone back to the European way, but through video.
And I don't know, it's kind of got a little bit lazier, because like, you're not like you send your resume and your cover letter and your headshot through like email and then you attach it, but like it's not like a ritualized process anymore.
Like, you don't have to breathe, you don't have to like do this, but like, my recommendation as a director and as a producer, right, please try to reach out in person. Right, try to really get to know and connect with us, because if you do that, we'll take you more in a heartbeat, you know, because we've had a few people that auditioned for last 5 years that were more personable, contacted us really quickly, talked to us in person even, and we took them over everyone else because we thought
we could get so much more out of them, and we could ask the questions we wanted and have them do the things we wanted to see. I feel like it gives you more opportunity in a way. Wow. But I mean, I guess we still have to like look at the point of like, the fact is that there are turning to mostly just virtual auditions. And how does somebody prepare for that, and how can they give the best audition through video monologue?
And sometimes it is making it in one cut, right, making it in one thing to make it look so seamless and making it seem so crisp, like the ones that, but it has to still feel personal, right? The ones that feel personal, that are one clip, that are really confident, are the ones we're always going to choose, right? And sometimes shorter. Like,
sometimes, I mean, length can, you know, it's really depending on what character you're portraying, what you're going for, and how you can portray it. Also, like, when you're auditioning in person, like, you dress like nice, usually in blacks, and go out there on the stage that they have, or wherever they're holding the auditions, and you know exactly what your background's going to be. But when you're in video, you need to be conscious of what's in your background. Make sure you're looking nice. I like to, most of the time, I would suggest being in a solid color. I think black is always usually the best way to go. But
white has been a new thing that a lot of people have been liking.
I think it's good as long as it's not a white background. Don't be white walled with a white shirt. But have solid colors, nothing distracting on your shirt, nothing that's going to take the focus away from you. If you're wanting to be like in the role of the character based on a certain character you're playing, like, sure, you can experiment with that, be unique and different, you know, because you still want to stand out. But overall, I would suggest being like solid color with a non-distracting background. Have a wall with you know, there's no plants going on back there, or your little sister's dancing and the cat's crawling on the couch, you know, like, don't have that stuff. Have it clear, and where you are the focus, where we can really see your facial expressions, where we can really look at your looks and how you're portraying the character. But no distracting backgrounds. I'd say be conscious of the lighting. Don't let shadows overrun your face. let your face be seen, and really make sure you're focusing on the volume quality and the sound, because like I said, you don't want the cat ruining the video. You don't want the truck that's driving by, or the train.
So for actors, investing in a lav that can connect to your phone will save you so much time, so much money. And the thing is, if they can hear you, they're gonna hire you. Like, most of the time, like, if they can hear you clearly, they're like, oh, this person knows what they're doing, right? And so investing in those things is really important.
And like, producers and directors know that you made the conscious effort to invest in yourself in that way.
Yeah, and they reward effort. Truly, like, we do that all the time. If an actor gives us 110, we're gonna work with them again and again and again, and they will get jobs and jobs and jobs and jobs. We haven't rehired anyone yet, but we're going to. Like,
like we keep a list of contacts of people that work really, really well, or that we like specifically because of their work ethic and how much they put into it, and knowing that we can build them from where they are and bring them up only higher. But a lot of it is determined just based on their work ethic and their sense of surrounding and knowing, and just wanting to improve themselves, because like, we can't want it more than you. That's the big thing.
Can you take me higher?
No.
And I think, like, with music too, right? When you're finding an artist, right? Finding someone that is comfortable and really understanding of their instrument and of their genre, right? You want someone that knows what they're talking about, because I think that's why it was important for me to like do education at UVU, because I learned the genre to a point that I can talk the best theater with anyone,
Yeah, when it comes to music, audition process is a lot different, but there are similarities. When it comes to the genre that you're going for, you need to know what you're trying to play, and you need to know, like, how to play your instrument properly. That's the biggest reason why you're auditioning, is because you can play that instrument, and that's why people are looking for that instrument, is because you're the guy that they're looking for, and that's what you're really wanting to make sure, is that you're the guy that they're going to get, or you're the lady that they're going to get for that part. Whether you're a singer or you're an instrument player, whatever it is, or even just a producer, you want to make sure that you have the skills and the knowledge to be able to bring it to the table and say, I can do this, and I can do it really well, and this is why you guys need me. When I'm doing auditions, especially when I was working with Todd on the first couple projects, I ended up hiring a couple of people to help out with a couple of projects, because I needed some extra time to work on other projects for him. And what ended up happening was, for one of the projects, I needed an extra guitar part, because I didn't have the time in that specific moment to learn how to play a certain part and then go to another song and then record that part and then go back to that song and play that part and learn how to play it again for hours on end. And it would have taken so much extra time. So I decided, well, I'm gonna find someone who knows how to play the guitar and knows how to play a certain thing that should be pretty easy for a guitar player. I'm not like a guitar player. That's not what I do. I produce music. I record, and I take other sounds from other people, and I put it together in the song. And if I have to, I will record when I need to, but it does take longer for me to do that. And that's why sometimes the rates will end up going higher when I have to sit there for hours on end. It just takes a lot longer. And so when I'm looking for people to help out with certain projects, I'm looking for a very specific instrument, I'm looking for a very specific sound with that instrument, and I'm looking for a certain type of play that they can do, like a tune or a rhythm, whatever it is. And when I was looking for a certain guitar player, I got on Facebook, on all the different groups, and I posted up a big, what do you call those, advertisements, I guess?
Yeah.
I posted up an advertisement saying, I will pay you for this part, but I need to know like how well you play and if you can play this instrument. And I got literally like 30 messages. And the thing about doing auditions is that you never go with the first person that you get a message from unless they're really good. Because the thing is, if you just start saying yes to the first people that you get messages from, it's normally not going to be great, because they're not exactly what you're looking for, because you're not taking the time to really listen to what they have to offer.
You have to vet them out.
Yeah,
unless you're desperate.
Unless you're very desperate. But usually it's not going to turn out well when you're desperate. If you're just rushing through it and you're just getting the first person that you can find, it's not going to turn out well because you're not taking the time to really put it in. And I was looking for a very specific sound that I could do. And at the time, we were looking for something that's kind of more like a punk rock, kind of, whatever it was at the time. And the couple of guitar players that I ended up finding, there was some guys that, they were okay, and they could do more like R&B and like maybe jazz. And I was like, that's not really what I'm looking for, guys. I'm so sorry, but I'm looking for something a little bit different. And they would send me something a little bit different, but it's still kind of in that jazzy R&B genre, and that's not what I'm looking for. I was looking for more like rock type of feel, and they just weren't cutting it. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm moving on.
So when you were asking them for the how to audition, what specifically were you wanting them to send you?
So when I asked them to send over stuff, I was asking them, okay, I'm looking for a very specific genre. Can you play a rock type of sound? And can you play a certain type of rhythm? At the time, I didn't know exactly what the rhythm was, but I did tell them, like, okay, we have kind of a tune in our head, but we don't know exactly what we're looking for right now. So as long as you can play like a rock tune and you can play it within that range that we're looking for, that's really all we need to move on to the next stage. But it's just kind of like dwindling down to that point that you get the right person. Because with music, it's really weird, especially when you're starting from scratch and the only thing you're going off of is a tune from somebody's head. That's the hardest part, is going from somebody's tune inside their head, and it's really difficult to get the right tune, the right rhythm, and the right sound that they're looking for when all they can offer is whatever it was. And it's hard to be able to get that right sound. And so going through like multiple people at a time, it's hard to get that perfect sound. But eventually I ended up finding somebody that was really, really good at playing the guitar. He had the sound that I was looking for, and he sent me a whole bunch of different songs that he's worked on. He's worked on like really professional grade songs. His rate was really high. But at the time, I was like, okay, well, it's not going to take him very long to be able to record this because he's really good at what he does. So I hired this guy because he sent me a bunch of stuff that was pretty well within that genre that we were looking for. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, this is what we're looking for then. So I had him record a couple of things, and I sent it over to the client. He's like, these are good, but this isn't quite what we're looking for. I said, all right, then. That's not what we're looking for, dude. But pretty much I ended up paying him anyways, because that's how that works. When you hire somebody to do something and they do it, you pay them, even if you don't use it. That's how the music and entertainment world is.
Because he still won the audition.
He still did it. And so he still got it. He still got paid, and we still moved on. But I ended up using something else that I just played on my own. It took me about 4 hours to get it down, but I eventually got it down, and I ended up almost being late on projects because it took me so much extra time to record it. But that's how it is sometimes when you're looking for people. Sometimes it works out really well, and other times you just got to redo it and just keep going and keep moving. And there were other projects that I was looking for other people on, and at the time I just didn't have like the time or the resources at that moment to find someone who could help out. But there were resources at the time that I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna see what they can do. And I ended up having them help out with projects, and they were doing really good for a little while. But eventually, client and I were kind of listening to it over some time, and eventually the client was like, "It's not quite what I was hoping for." I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna keep working on this one." So we're still in that phase of trying to redo some things, but that's how it is when you're looking for people. It's a hit or miss thing when you start doing stuff from people's head. You know what I mean?
You're having to read their mind.
You have to really actually try to read their mind. It's really hard to do. But, eventually you land on something that works. It just takes a lot of back and forth. Like you get the first idea from their head, and you say, okay, what can I do with this? And you go, okay, I can either hire someone for this thing who knows how to do this thing really well, or I can sit for a few hours and just work with it and send them a bunch of things back and forth until we finally narrow it down. And that's kind of just what happens. Is, especially with me right now, that's kind of what's just been happening. Is it's a lot of it, and it's not hard for me to do. It just takes a lot of extra time, because that's what happens when you have to sit there and record it and practice it and play it. And a lot of times I mess up, and so I have to go back and delete it. Then I have to go back into recording it, and that's just the process of recording. It's not like a big deal to me. That's just the process. But it's a lot of like getting it done, sending it off, and then getting the feedback, and then going, okay, so that's not what they really liked, but they really liked this. So we're going to refine this down a little bit more, make this little funnel, and eventually you start trimming off the edges that they don't like, and you get it to that point where they really like it. And that's just kind of how the music world works when you're having to read people's minds. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, and the thing is too, like, specifics will help so much. Like talking in specifics, because I've noticed, like, a lot of the times clients and other stuff will be like, I want it to sound kind of like this.
Yes.
And they say kind of.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, I need you to take out the kind of
and put in what do you want.
What do you want?
Yes.
Right? And I think that also helps the overall auditioning process.
Yes, it makes it go a lot faster.
The more specific you are, the more you'll be able to find what you want and need, right? And like in a lot of my like auditioning things, what's funny is in college, right? You get what you get and you just accept it.
You get what you
right?
get, you don't throw a fit.
Like because like a lot of times with college, no one wants to freaking audition for your stuff because they're like, oh, you're in college, like there's no pay out of this or anything. And it's like, well, if you do well with me, I'll hire you when I can pay you, you know? Like,
and like you're still making a name for yourself, and like people just haven't seen that you have the potential to be there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think what's really important about auditioning, right, overall, is just be confident, right? Understand what your talent is and go for it.
Yep.
Right? And if you want something, go for it. If you have ideas that you feel like you can't reach alone, reach out to other people, right? Really, like that's kind of what we're here to do as What the Blank.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we audition a lot of people, is we want to find the best people who are kind of being looked away from, right? If you don't look like a certain thing, a lot of times you won't get hired or even chosen because you didn't look the part.
You weren't in the right age, or you didn't look the age that they're wanting, or like ethnicity is becoming a really big deal in casting. They want people's color or specific gender for all things, and like sometimes it's necessary, but like we like to keep it very talent based.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of want to bring up though is like on the audition side, I don't know how much time we have left, but I hope we have some time to talk about this. But one thing that I noticed, especially with working with clients on music, is I am auditioning every single time I make a song for that client. It's like a brand new audition almost every single time I'm working on a song, because that working on a song for clients, especially when you're having to like pull that song out of their head and put it into the speakers, and then you having to like put it into your own head and go, okay, this is how they want it, this is how I can do it, this is how I can make it, what can we do with the resources that I have currently? It's really just a big audition process every single time you go into it, and that's pretty much almost with any entertainment thing. Like it's a brand new audition process every time you go through it. And I remember when Captain Telltale and I were starting to work with each other, he wanted me to work on a couple of 80s songs. I'm not a huge 80s fan, and so working on 80s songs was like really hard for me, because I was like, I don't really understand the genre very well, and I was going back and forth with YouTube videos, listening to the music over and over and over again, but I just could not get it down right. And eventually Captain Telltale and I changed that. We were like, okay, maybe 80s isn't gonna work out, so let's change it to more of a funk and hip hop type of sound that still kind of encompasses that feel, but it's just a different type of thing. And it's really just a new audition process every time you go into it, because it's like, okay, well, that thing didn't work, so let's go into this new thing and see if this one works. And that one will work. Okay, well, let's move on to this now and see if this will work with this. Okay, that works. Well, now let's put these two together and see if we can get these two to work together. It's really just a big audition process. And if something doesn't work, that one's gone. And then you're moving on. And you have to keep moving, or else you're going to get stuck behind and then you're going to get lost.
It kind of reminds me of like building Legos blindfolded.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Like you have a client that you're like, okay, you want a spaceship, but they have you blindfolded and you're like, okay, does this look like a spaceship? And they're like, no.
Yeah,
like
that's what it is.
That looks like a lollipop.
That's what it is with a lot of people. And even when I was doing a lot of hip hop stuff up in Ogden, when I used to live up there years ago, that's how it went. Like a lot of times they wanted like a certain type of sound, but they didn't know how to really explain it. And so I'd sit there for hours and hours and hours and working on something that they kind of wanted, but I didn't know exactly what they wanted, because they would explain it in a way that was exactly what you just said, is like they were trying to get me to build like a spaceship blindfolded and almost with my hands tied behind my back, because I was like, okay, I have an idea that you want, but I don't know exactly the way that you want it. And I would make it and they'd go, no, that's not right. And I, okay, go back to hours and hours and working on it, bring it back to them and they're like, okay, well, that's a little bit closer, but that's not still there. And like, okay, scrap it, redo it, blah, 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 blah. And you're literally just refining it down to this funnel to the point where you get it to that fine point that works for both parties.
Yeah.
And it's really just a bunch of negotiating and new auditioning and just getting things reset pretty much.
And just communicating and being specific can save so much time and so much money.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of like what we've talked about this season.
Yeah,
you know,
a lot of communication stuff.
The importance of communication. Just watch. Like, we're gonna like go over like all the things of the Kim project, like connection, movement, and everything. Like each season, like we'll like find a new connection.
I mean, it really is like really, that's really what it is. The Kim project really just goes over everything we talk about. You know, that really is like such an important core thing to hold on to is that process, because you have to know how to do these things. Like, you need to know communication. You know, it's like it's one of the most important things when it comes to working with people. You need to communicate properly. You know, and we're all still working on even building each other up on how to do certain things better. But you know, that's how it is when you're working with a team. You just learn and keep growing.
Yeah, and one thing I feel like I want to improve and I want to like change in all industries auditions is the showing the expectation that you want from an audition, because a lot of the times, especially in theater, they're just like, oh, you're auditioning for this part, do your best, right? And yes, you get a lot of that surprise factor from it, but the thing is, if you communicated what exactly you wanted, oh my gosh, it would change everything. It would make auditioning faster, it would make casting easier, and it would make understanding each other so much easier.
Yeah.
And I also am a firm believer, like, it's okay to ask questions during your audition. Like, don't be afraid to communicate and ask for those, or ask for tips and pointers afterwards of why, you know, how you could have done better. Try to get some of that critique.
I always do that every time I'm done with a project. Like, how could I have done better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, last advice, and then we'll wrap up. My advice is be yourself and have fun.
My advice is do the best you can, and even when you have to redo it after working for hours on end, don't give up. Don't cry about it. Just keep working on it and you'll get better.
Yeah. I'd say, you know, audition consistently all the time. You know, it's not going to hurt you if you book multiple parts and you have options.
Yep.
Always keep working, because you're not going to get every audition. You're not going to get every gig. You're not going to get every part or, you know, the part you want. But as long as you can keep going every single day and keep improving time and time again without giving up and taking the criticism and advice that along the way, you're only going to get better. And the journey's only going to get so much farther.
Yeah. Well, this was How the Blank, and this was How the Audition Process. Yeah. So thank you for watching. You can what? I was doing great.
It wasn't you. Anyway, if you want to follow us on any platform, you can go to Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you want to work on anything with us, reach out to us and we'll work with you. All right. Bye.
Bye.